Welcome to the Tough Decisions Network. This is our special Friday edition called Flashback Friday, where we recap the lessons learned from the interviews from the current week. Be sure to visit toughdecisions.net for links to each of the episodes that we covered today. Also, sign up for our free weekly entrepreneur email. Before we get started, let's hear from one of our sponsors. Want daily interviews with real estate investors and none of the fluff? Go to bestevershow.com, where Joe Fairless interviews real estate investors and entrepreneurs daily about their best advice ever. Go to bestevershow.com. Welcome to another edition of the Flashback Friday show. Today we're talking about 4 more interviews that we did this week. Starting off with episode 60, which is Lane Kawaoka, who is based out of Hawaii. He has an interesting story. And also episode 61, Tony Loyd. Episode 62 with Carol Sanford. And episode 63, Jeff Altman. So let's first talk about Lane Kawaoka, who is based out of Hawaii. He's a full-time civil engineer and real estate investor, and he controls over 1,300 multifamily apartment and RV units across the United States. And he talks about how he transitioned from single-family investing into multifamily investing and some of the reasons why. He also is currently working a job and talked about how he can work a job that he has right now and also do real estate at the same time and what that actually looks like. He also believes that real estate will get him eventually out of the rat race. Now, he also talked about how you don't work with people that you do not like, know, or trust, and making sure that you do your due diligence, and he shares a story about that as well. And then he also talks about how he's selling off all of his single-family homes, and he's moving into the multifamily real estate investing space full-time. Now, I also want to talk about episode 61. Episode 61 is Tony Loyd. He's a best-selling author and is a former Fortune 500 executive. He is the host of the podcast Social Entrepreneur and also talks about his journey from becoming an intrapreneur, turning into an entrepreneur. And so if you've never heard that phrase before, intrapreneur, make sure you tune into his episode 61. He also started a radio program, and in that radio program, he talks about the difficult, tough decision about how he did not get any financial return from that radio program, which eventually led him to stop that radio show and stop that radio program. And his big takeaway from that was that if you know something is not working anymore, then you need to learn to just let it go. Now, one of the biggest lessons he talked about was trusting his instincts. He stated, you should trust your gut feeling about important decisions that you make in life. And there's 3 questions that he also talked about that he had to go through himself. And number 1 is, when is enough enough? Number 2, am I creating the kind of contribution I want to leave with the world? And number 3, what have I done with the life that I've been given? And he goes through those 3 questions and to help you kind of think through certain things. He also talks about FIRE. That FIRE meaning that financial independence, retire early acronym, FIRE, and how following that helped him create a nest egg for his future. And he also talks about a very unique decision-making process that I think all of us who are married men can take a lesson from, is how he adapted to his wife's decision-making style. So tune into that episode 61 to get that. He also talks about how when you set goals, you should work backwards from those goals and break those goals down into smaller steps to allow them to be more achievable. So that leads us into episode 62. Episode 62 is Carol Sanford. Carol Sanford's interview was very interesting. I walked away from that interview going, man, I can't wait to have her on again because she has so much content and she provides so much value packed into that 25-minute episode that if you don't listen to any of the interviews this week, make sure you go back and listen to episode 62, which is Carol Sanford. She's the executive producer with the Regenerative Business Summit and is the best-selling multi-award-winning author of 5 different books, and she's coming out with more as well. She's also the host of 3 podcasts, including her most popular one called Business Second Opinion. And so make sure you tune into her podcast there and get more information from her. She is excellent. One of the things that she really talked about during her episode, which was the biggest takeaway for me, was that you cannot motivate anyone. Motivation is all about creating conditions in which people start to motivate themselves. You cannot motivate somebody else. you can only create conditions which allows them to be motivated. And she talks about how, we should be replacing the incentive systems and the corporate structure, and how the best practices that we've all been taught are not the best practices in reality. Don't try to mimic as a small business what big businesses are doing, and making sure that you connect and have systems in place to connect your people to your actual direct customers, and also disrupt yourself and learn to think differently. So those are some of the topics from Carol's episode. I highly encourage you to go back and listen to that, episode 62. She was phenomenal, and I can't wait to have her on for a future episode. And last but not least is episode 63 with Jeff Altman. He is a career and leadership coach, and he is the host of 2 radio shows on job search called Job Search Coaching HQ and No BS Coaching Advice. He started off by talking about how he got an undergraduate degree that qualified him to do absolutely nothing. And then he stumbled on a career in job search. And so he started off by working in recruitment for many years and then decided to transition into the coaching space. And he talks about some tough decisions that he had along the way about selecting bad partners, and then talking about, you should be thinking versus reacting when making decisions. And then some of the biggest hurdles that people need to make is realizing that they need help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. He also talks about how he helps people navigate the complicated process of job hunting. You don't know what you don't know. So those are the episodes from this week. We had 4 great interviews. First off was Lane Kawaoka on episode 60. Episode 61 was Tony Loyd. Episode 62 was Carol Sanford. And then episode 63 was Jeff Altman. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Flashback Friday. And until next time, have a great day. Thank you for listening to the Tough Decisions Network. Be sure to visit toughdecisions.net to gain access to show notes for this episode and to join our free weekly entrepreneur email, where we will send you news about the latest technology for your business, inspiring quotes, and the latest books for entrepreneurs. That's toughdecisions.net.